Good afternoon. Last class we start to discuss about especially the Mahajanapadas. So we came to know that for what used to called as Mahajanapadas. Today's class we are going to learn about taxes. Taxes. See, to run a system, they need some resources. For example, for any kind of work, maintenance of the courts and maintenance of the different institutions, including army and the welfare works, for everything. So the resources are required. So how they were maintained the resources? Even till today, we know that in the present day also we are paying different taxes to the government. Some taxes may be direct taxes, and some of the taxes may be indirect taxes. So, these taxes only the main resource for the government to do all whatever it's required. So, the same even in Mahajanapadas also. So, already we discussed about the rulers of Mahajanapadas. They were constructed huge buildings and even they were maintained big armies also. See, constructions, maintaining buildings, and then maintaining armies. So, they needed more resources and they needed officials to collect these. Who were going to collect these taxes? So, again, they needed officials also to collect these taxes. So, instead of depending on occasional gifts brought by people, what we seen in the Raja of the Janapadas. So, here in the Mahajanapadas, they started collecting regular taxes. So, actually, the Raja of the Janapadas, they were not having any kind of building or palace, and even they were not maintained any kinds of army also. So just occasionally the people used to brought some of the gifts, some of the gifts. So that's all. But here in Mahajanapadas, Rajas they were start to collect the regular taxes. They were collecting regularly taxes. Now let us see some of the taxes which were collected by the Rajas of Mahajanapadas. The first thing that taxes on crops, taxes on crops. See, always since from this period until present, so taxes on crops is one of the most important tax. So this was because most people they were farmers. So the most of the people they were farmers. So that's what taxes on crops were more important. Usually, the tax was fixed at one sixth of the produce. One sixth of the produce. Whatever they were produced, so the one sixth of the produce. So that was collected by the Rajas of Mahajanapadas as a tax, and this is known as Bhaga. And this tax is known as Bhaga. Understood now? This was known as Bhaga. Bhaga actually, even in Kannada, we used to call Bhaga only, that means share, divide, share. Okay. And there were taxes on craftspersons as well as. So the first one, tax on crafts and taxes on craft persons. See, there were some of the taxes on craft, craft persons as well. See, these could have been in the form of labor. For example, a weaver or a smith may have had to work for a day every month for the king. So instead of paying, so these crowd persons, so they were demanded to serve freely one day for a king. And after that, the next one, herders. So here, herders were also expected to pay taxes in the form of animals and animal produces. So even the next category, herders. So herders also paid taxes, that is in the form of animals or animal produce. And afterwards, there were taxes on goods that were bought and sold through trade. That means the trade taxes. So taxes on goods. So actually, the taxes on goods, whatever they are purchasing, selling, buying, trading. So it's like trade tax or taxes they were collected on the goods also, whatever the people they were purchased or selling. And hunters and gatherers, they also had to provide forest produce to the Rajas. Afterwards, what now? The hunters and gatherers. Hunters and gatherers. So they also provide forest produce to the Raja. So these were some of the important tax which were collected by Rajas of Mahajanapadas during that time. I hope these students, so you got this point. Now let us discuss about the agricultural changes during this period. The agricultural changes during this period. Agricultural changes. See, there were two major changes in agriculture during this period. So, there were two major changes. Two major agricultural changes during this period. So, one was the growing use of growing use of iron flow shells. So it is one of the important. That is one growing use of Iron flow cells. Okay. So there were two major changes in agriculture around this time. So one was the growing use of iron plowshares. That means ಕಬ್ಬಿಣದ ನೇಗಿಲುಗಳನ್ನ so ಬಳಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. That means so we all of knows that the iron flows shares are heavy and clayey soil could be turned over better than with the wooden flow share. ಸೊ ಮರದ ನೇಗಿಲುಗಳಿಗಿಂತ ಈ ಒಂದು ಐರನ್ ನೇಗಿಲುಗಳು ಬಹಳ ಉಪಯುಕ್ತ ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಟಿವೇಶನ್ ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಮೋರ್ ಗ್ರೇನ್ ಕುಡ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್. ಸೊ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಟ್ ಸೊ ಮೋರ್ ಗ್ರೇನ್ ಕುಡ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್. ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್ is the first major changes, that is a growing use of iron flow shares instead of wooden plowshares. The second thing, people began transplanting paddy. People began transplanting paddy. So, transplanting. ಬಹುಶಃ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ. ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲಾಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾಟಿ ಹಾಕೋದು ಅಂತೇಳಿ, ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಭತ್ತದ ನಾಟಿಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕಾಣ್ತೀವಿ. ಪ್ಯಾಡಿ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಭತ್ತ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ದಿಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಸೊ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಬಿಗ್ಯಾನ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲಾಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ಯಾಡಿ, ಭತ್ತವನ್ನು ನಾಟಿ ಹಾಕ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಮೇಜರ್ ಅಗ್ರಿಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್. Major agricultural changes during this period. So the first one is the growing use of iron plowshares, and the second one that people began transplanting paddy. That means that instead of scattering seed on the ground, understood now? So instead of scattering seeds on the ground from which plants would sprout, saplings were grown and then planted in the fields. ಭತ್ತವನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ, ಅದು ನಮ್ಮ ಕಡೆ ಒಟ್ಟು ಹಾಕೋದು ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ, ಒಂದೇ ಕಡೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಹಾಕಿ ಅದು ಪೈರ್ ಬಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಆ ಭತ್ತದ ಪೈರನ್ನು ಕಿತ್ತು ಎಗೇನ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್, ಬೇರೆ ಆ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕ್ರಮಬದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. See, this led to increased production. So ಕಾಮನ್ ಬಿತ್ತನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ, ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಅಂತ ಹೋಗೋದು, ಅದು ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾಟ್ರೆಡ್ ಚೆಲ್ತಾ ಹೋಗೋದು. ಅದನ್ನ ಬಹುಶಃ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ದವಸ ಧಾನ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಬೆಳೆಯುವಂತಹ ಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿತ್ತನೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬಿತ್ತನೆ ಕ್ರಮ. ಸೊ ಚೆಲ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ ಭೂಮಿ ಮೇಲೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅದ್ರ ಬದಲು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಒಟ್ಟಾಕಿ ಅದು ಪೈರ್ ಬಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಆ ಪೈರ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಕಿತ್ತು ಅದನ್ನ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸೊ ಕ್ರಮಬದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುದು. See, this led to increased production. This led to increased production. So because of this system, so automatically the production it's increased. So as many more plants survived. So however, it was a back-breaking work. It was a back-breaking work. Generally, slave man and woman. So that we all knows that those who are called as dasas and dasis, and the landless agricultural laborers. So had to this work. ಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಕೆಲಸಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಮೆನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವುಮೆನ್, ದೋಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ದಾಸಾಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದಾಸೀಸ್. ದಾಸಾಸ್ ದಾಸೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ, ದಾಸ ಮತ್ತೆ ದಾಸಿಯರು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಲೇವ್ಸ್. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಲೆಸ್ ಅಗ್ರಿಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ ಲೇಬರರ್ಸ್. So there are actually no all the agricultural activities, but they do not have their own land, and those landless agricultural laborers are called as kammakaras. So the landless agricultural laborers, they are called as kammakaras. See, the kammakaras were landless agricultural laborers. So actually these the dasas and dasis and these kamakaras had to this war. Got it, dear students? Now let us discuss about Magadha. Magadha. See, Magadha, it is one of the most important Mahajana. It is one of the most important Mahajanapada. Magadha, it was one of the most important Mahajanapada. It is about 200 years ago. ಸುಮಾರು 200 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ ಮಗಧ ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಮಹಾಜನಪದ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. So here many rivers such as Ganga and Son flow through Magadha. So there were many rivers such as Ganga and the river Son. The river Son flowed through Magadha region. So this was important for transport, water supply, and making the land fertile. So actually, so there are many rivers such as Ganga and river Sam. So this flowed through the Magadha region. So because of that, it has become so very important for especially transport. Okay, and even the water supplies, water supplies, and making the land fertile. Making the land fertile. See, so because of the many rivers, the Magadha region, it's become one of the most important Mahajanapada, and here there were so many rivers flowed such as Ganga and Son through the Magadha region, and this was important for transport, water supply, and even making the land fertile. See, parts of Magadha were forested. Parts of Magadha were forested. Elephants which lived in the forest. So there were so many wild animals lived in the forest, and because it has, I mean, the parts of the Magadha were forested. See, who lived in the forest would be captured and trained for the army. So they were captured elephant, and even they were trained for the army also. Getting now? So those who were lived in a forest, those forest people, they were captured. They were captured elephants, and they were trained for the army. Forests also provided wood for building houses, carts, and chariots. So it's the main resources constructing building, and even the carts also, and even chariots also. So besides, there were iron ore mines in this region that could be tapped to make strong tools and weapons. So these forests were iron ore also, and in this could be tapped to make strong tools and weapons. Magadha had two very powerful rulers. Magadha had two powerful rulers. Getting these students. So here there we can see the two powerful rulers. The two powerful rulers. So those are Bimbasara and Ajata Satru. Getting these students. So Bimbasara and Ajata Satru. So these were the two powerful rulers of the Magadha Mahajanapada, who used all possible means to conquer other Janapadas. See, afterwards, Mahapadmananda, Mahapadmananda, he was another powerful ruler. Mahapadmananda. So he was Mahapadmananda, he was another powerful ruler. Getting now. So he extended his control up to the northwest part of the subcontinent. So Rajgriha. So the present day Rajgiri ತನಕ ಆತ ತನ್ನ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯವನ್ನು ವಿಸ್ತರಣೆ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾನೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ. So in Bihar, so Rajagriha, it is located in the present Bihar, which is called as Rajgiri. So it was the capital of Magadha for several years. So Rajagriha, it was a capital for Magadha. Okay, for several years. And later, the capital was shifted to Pataliputra. Afterwards, the capital shifted to Pataliputra, which is now called as like Patna. Present Patna. That is Pataliputra. It is another, afterwards, became the capital city of the Magadha. More than 2300 years ago, a ruler named Alexander, I think all of you heard that, Alexander the Great, see, who lived in Macedonia in Europe, he wanted to become a world conqueror. He wanted to become a world conqueror. So here, of course, he didn't conquer the world. Anyhow, he didn't conquer the world, but did conquer parts of Egypt and West Asia, and came to the Indian subcontinent, reaching up to the banks of the Bias. When he wanted to march further eastwards, his soldiers refused. So they were scared. See, the soldiers, they were scared and refused, as they had heard that the rulers of India had vast armies of foot soldiers, chariots, and elephants. So that's what they were scared. Understood now. Now let us learn about the another one, that is Vajji. See, while Magadha became a powerful kingdom, Vajji with its capital at Vaishali, Bihar. It was under the different form of government. Vajji and its capital at Vaishali. Vaishali, it was the capital of Vajji. Understood now. So it is present in Bihar. So it was under a different form of government that is known as Gana or Sangha. So the Vajji is ruled by Gana of Sangha. Getting now? See, in a Gana or Sangha, there were not one. Actually, the word itself that explains Gana. That means a group. Gana means group. Gana, Gumpu, ಅಥವಾ Sangha. Sangha means the same. So, there is a more than one member. So, that means it was very clear that they were not one, but many rulers. Sometimes, even when thousands of men ruled together, you may surprise you. Sometimes, sometimes, so many rulers, the thousands and thousands of rulers getting now. So they may rule together. See, each one was known as a Raja. If thousands are there, thousands also called as a Raja. So these Rajas performed religious rituals, I mean the rituals all together. Whatever it may be, the different rituals. So they were performed all together. They also met in assemblies and decided what had to be done and how. So all together they were discussed in an assembly. For example, if they were attacked by an enemy, they met to discuss what should be done to meet the threat. What should be? So the debate, the discussion. However, the women, dasas and kamakaras, those who were called as landless agriculture laborers, could not participate in these assemblies. So, women, dasas and kamakaras, they could not participate in these assemblies. So, both the Buddha and Mahavira. So, about Buddha and Mahavira, we are going to study in a separate chapter. So, they were belongs to these Ganas and Sanghas. Getting now? So, the Buddha and the Mahavira. So, these two were also belonged to Ganas or Sanghas. See, some of the most vivid descriptions of life in the Sanghas can be found in Buddhist books. So, Rajas of powerful kingdoms tried to conquer the Sanghas, but nevertheless, these lasted for a very long time till about 1500 years ago when the last time of the Ganas or Sangh were conquered by the Gupta rulers. So these actually till about 1500 years ago, so they is lost it. And the last of the Ganas or Sanghas were conquered by the Gupta rulers. So about Guptas we are going to learn in the 10th chapter. So this is about so some of the kingdoms, kings and an early republic. Got it, dear students? So I hope you all have understood this chapter. If not, so please call me and then please clear your doubt. Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.